So good morning, and you know what? You just promoted me to the assistant secretary, and I love that. Actually, I'm the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. What does that mean? No one really cares. What you all came here today to hear about is how you're going to get prepped to continue to do business with the DoD. Am I right? Yes. Okay. So who's seen me talk before? All right, so you know, we're not going to do this presentation again. For the love of Pete, right? Who is so tired of seeing that slide? I, for one, am. And this logo has become like, I should get shirts made with this logo. So a couple of things. First, I want to get that little co-robot. What is it called? Cobot? I wanted to do my makeup. I could save so much time. It's like Judy Jetson. Do you remember she walked in and like, oh, look how pretty I look. It'd be awesome. Then I couldn't say what I do about my eyebrows all the time. And I went a different way today because I realized in the videos how harsh I look. So today it's powder, not eyeliner, just so you know. Nobody really cares. All right, so where are we with the CMMC? Well, you all know we dropped 1.0 on January 31st. And now we're moving into actually making it real. Don't mind me while I get a drink. Sorry, been a long morning already. The people that will be here today to talk to you, there's two people, Mark Berman, Ty Schreiber. Ty Schreiber, Mark Berman. Stand up, gentlemen. Hi. These guys right here are the chairman and the vice chair. What's it? Mark's? The directors of the accreditation body, right? They're all volunteer.
And Jim Goebel, where are you? There he is.
Jim, thank you. These guys are doing, as I say, and this will be the Lord's work, and thank them, right? Because they're volunteers. They're not getting anything out of doing the accreditation body. So I thank you, gentlemen, for your time, for the team's time on that. All right, so people said we couldn't do it. We did. People are nervous that we aren't going to do it. We are. We all know that I am, people say I'm a tornado, but really all I am is the voice of sanity. And we have to do this, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all have heard me. I will tell you again. My fear factor, the Katie Arrington, why do you stay up at night? It's the year 2025. We're fast forwarding into 2025. Two things happen in that year that just keep me up at night. One, quantum computing becomes commonplace. Quantum computing becomes commonplace. Imagine what quantum computing does. Because you guys have heard me, it breaks basic level encryption. That's if you're even encrypting it, right? Quantum becomes basic level and 5G becomes commercially available. Even though I personally went off on that last week at RSA, if anybody caught that, our competitor there. And here's the analogy I can give you on what it is. Cybersecurity should be at the base of what you do every single day. You have to. Why? Tell me something in your life that doesn't have cyber in it. Someone, I am begging you to tell me. Anybody. And y'all know my joke, you can't say love, because I've met my third husband on eHarmony, and that's a fact. You gotta love a person that can actually acknowledge the fact she's had 3 husbands, right? You know, hey, I have a various assortment of wedding dresses. I went casual all the way to formal. Anyway, you just can't. So imagine your small business is like your house, okay? Here's how you need to explain it to your leadership, as simple as this. In the world of quantum, all right, so imagine your business is a house, okay? And when you walk in at night, Stephanie, you lock your door, right? You turn your security system on. Now you do that, and you think of it like encryption. It's things to keep bad people out, right? It's buying down the risk that the bad guy will break into your house. If he has to go through, you're making it harder. You're buying up the uncertainty by locking the door and having your security system. You're buying up the uncertainty and buying down the risk that the guy's gonna walk in or the girl's gonna walk in. That is encryption. So think of that, your house. The locks, the doors, the security system is encryption. You look at how the elements affect you by your house itself. The fact you have a roof and you have walls are because you're trying to keep the elements at bay. You're not going to totally seal them out, right? But you understand the flow of how they're coming at you, okay? 2025, you imagine your house with no roof and no walls, no security system and no doors. That's how exposed your business is going to be. Not just to our adversaries, geopolitical adversaries, to your competitors, to that random kid sitting in his basement at 17 years old who's just, you at the coffee shop annoyed him. Honestly, it's that bad. And the Department of Defense knew that. And that's why the CMMC is in place. It is in place. The accreditation body, I did a post on LinkedIn. I called my husband on the way up here this morning. Now, who remembers I was a politician, right? I barely got any feed from that. I had over 60,000 views of the post that I put that there aren't any CMMC accredited companies out there today. It doesn't mean when I said that, don't get ready. I am doing this. We are moving forward. I am in the middle of a DFAR rule change. Who knows? I got dinged, by the way. I went to talk to the Senate and the House the other day, and I talked above, so I need to bring it down. Who knows what the DFAR rules are? Does anyone? Do you want to know what it means? Small businesses, large businesses, when you come to do work with the government, you sign a contract with us, okay? Those rules are called the DFAR, okay? Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. There's something called the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, okay? So we have federal law and we have the Department of Defense, the regulations on how we go about doing business. In 2014, President Obama signed an executive order. Executive orders mean a lot. What he signed was an executive order saying that everybody in the Department of Defense that touched CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information, had to apply and instill and do the 110 controls in the NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, special publication 800-171 revision 1. It comes, and write it down. Ask your legal at your company, do you have DFAR rule 252.204.7012 in your contracts? If you do, you are supposed to be, you are attesting to the government, you are telling them you are doing all 110 controls of the NIST today. And what I can tell you right now is you're not. And I do not fault you, nor does the Department of Defense. The CMMC was not created to gig you, to put you out of business. What it was created to do was give you a standard that was unified within the department. 2, it was to help you understand the requirement and to give you an auditable way to say that you're meeting it, to lessen the burden on industry to do business with the Department of Defense, to create trust within your network with each other at the Department of Defense. And the third thing it was to do was to help you secure yourselves, because our industrial base is the basis of everything in national defense, right? We don't build anything in the DoD. You do. And if you're not there, what do we do? So the CMMC was set, it had a really good intent purpose. Now, the one thing that I did that everybody kind of, the thing that said, I read a lot of the articles at night when I'm laying there trying to figure out how to go to sleep. And the one article that kills me is the thing that they said that was the most relevant and why I have the most momentum behind me. It's because I called out the obvious. Security is an allowable cost. You'll do anything. Industry will do anything, right? But we have to tell them what we value, right? And we've got to put our money where our mouth is. You've seen the charts, $600 billion a year. That's $4,000 per US citizen after taxes every year. How do you think our adversaries afford what they do? You're paying for it. Your R&D, this is the part that really gets me as a true lover of my country. I am, and I know every one of you are. Every single person in this room is here not because they're going to get rich. You're here because you believe in a mission. You believe in a purpose. And I can tell you, looking across the room, there isn't a soul in here who doesn't think, I want to make it better. And I don't think any one of us gets up in the morning and says, I want to be inadequate and I want to fail. But the problem is we don't always give ourselves the tools to do that, right? Like, I know I want to lose 5 pounds. Now, it doesn't help when I go home that I have those pretzels filled with peanut butter and vodka, okay? I'm never going to lose that 5 pounds. But we have to get the tools that are needed to do it the right way. And we have to be able to ensure that the tools that you have are the right tools. CMMC, DFAR rule change. What does that mean? What's the DFAR rule change? Well, if you read it today, it says the companies are supposed to self-attest. And that cobot would have been really helpful to me when I talk about how, putting my makeup on. Because here's the analogy. Every one of us thinks we're doing the right thing. Like I said, none of us get up and want to be failures. None of us want to be mediocre. I don't know a person in the room, well, there have been some Saturdays where I have not gotten out of my bed, but for the most part, all of us get up every morning and we try to make the best that we can out of that day. And cybersecurity, I'm going to say this, has been a 4-letter word for a long time, right? People really didn't understand what we were talking about. The DFAR rule itself, no one really quite got it. Why? And the NIST is brilliant. Ron Ross, the people at NIST are brilliant, right? But what it is was a checklist, right? Do this, do this, do this, do this. And that DFAR rule just said, check the checklist, do it. What it didn't do and what we missed, right? As everybody in this room is of the generation, I'm going to say. I'm going to go out there on a limb. My son's 29, my daughters are 26. And I'll tell you, they are different than me. Very different in the way they learned and the way they think about life. I've spoken frequently, and I cannot impart this enough on you. Do you remember your first flip phone, right? We all remember the first phone. We used to carry the big car phones. Who remembers the luggage, right? And I joke around, Al Gore invented the internet and he didn't know what he was doing, right? Who thought, I can remember Steve Jobs on TV talking and holding up. Do you all remember his MP3 player? And him saying, I can put 14,000 songs on this. And I sat there holding my CD player. I'm like, that man is nuts. Do you remember that? Yes. And now we have these micro devices and we're like, it's not downloading instantly. I mean, we're actually at the point now where you click on the internet and you're upset if a text isn't read almost instantly. Do you realize where that text message is going to get to you? Think about that. I was in Ireland in the last year. And I'm texting my daughter from Ireland and it's not going through like instantly and I'm not getting the delivered and read. 10 years ago, we'll go back. 15 years ago, 2007. My first husband was in Iraq. And I remember having to wait for the phone call for him to call because there was no way to communicate other than that. Think of how far we have come in that amount of time. And tell me what difference we've done in security from there. It snuck up on us. We didn't put critical thinking behind it. Why? Because technology came by so fast. It's a bad thing, it's not wrong, but what we missed in cybersecurity was the critical thinking. The DFAR rule and the NIST didn't teach critical thinking about cybersecurity. The CMMC was built for companies to think critically about cybersecurity, not a checklist. All that the CMMC does is says, do you have the right tools? Do you have the right processes? Do you understand what we're asking you to do to ensure that you're capable of doing it? Here's the example, and if you've heard me speak, you know I do this, but I do it every single time. I was raised by a guy who's in the CIA, and I'm a military wife, military mommy. You say it 3 times. We have to bring in cybersecurity with critical thinking. How do I know that we don't do it? Back in the day, 1987, Corcoran High School, Syracuse, New York, Katie Arrington, Katie then Stolark back then. I walk in to do a library report. I walk into the library and I gotta think about the Dewey Decimal System. I gotta think about how I'm gonna research my book report. I've gotta think about, do I have the time to do this report? To read the books that are necessary? I have to validate where the information is coming from. Now I joke around, but I'm dead serious. The copyright of my Encyclopedia Britannica, I joke around, but Lincoln was still president. I mean, but we took that kind of critical thinking back then into how we did our book reports. We were taught to think things through. My son's 29, graduate of Clemson Engineering School. I'll tell you, critical thinking was not in his bandwidth. Why? Because, can I borrow this?
Yes.
Thank you. Sure. This is the magic stone. This is everything. This tells you what time it is in Russia. This tells you the weather. This tells you if your wife likes you. This tells you if your neighborhood likes you. This tells you everything. And you know what we don't do? We don't question this information. But how it gets to you is important. The same in business. It's no different. The magic stone is your desktop, your supply chain, how you do business with them. It's the same theory. You've got to have the critical thinking to survive. That's what CMMC is, critical thinking. Why do you have 2-factor authentication? Instead of just checking the box, I do, why do you have it? Why is it needed? Well, I can tell you right now, my husband has the password to my iPhone, as he should. The second thing is when I go into my email and I put that second password in to access my email on my iPhone, is why I do that is because there are certain emails he shouldn't be seeing. We do 2-factor authentication in companies where we query out who can see what, because HR doesn't need to understand if you're doing a very classified program for the Department of Defense. You're only allowed to see this particular network. We need to think why we're doing the things we're doing. Why do we try and air gap systems? It's buying down the risk. That's all it is. The DFAR rule was brilliant. The NIST 171 is brilliant. The challenge is we needed to make a way that you can adopt it, ingest it, and execute it. And we can be reassured that you're doing it, because I need you there. If you go away, any one of you go away, we feel it. We are a nation built on innovation. We are a nation built on capitalism. We are a nation built on the National Defense Industrial Base. You guys are everything. So we're not trying to hurt you. We're trying to help you. I'm going through the rule change, so I'm having to go to OMB and OIRA and explain the cost, because it is going to impact the economy. We've watched it impact the economy. So know that we understand that what we're asking is not a heavy lift, but it's a different culture. And the culture should be about, why do I want to be secure? We're concerned with getting up and making sure we eat healthy, because we want to be around for the long haul. We want your businesses to be around for the long haul. It's important to us, because without you, we're nothing. So with that, we created the model, we dropped it. The new DFAR rule change will actually say that you have to have the CMMC level required in your contract that we put out. We are still on target to roll out an RFIs in June. The rule change will have a public hearing in late April, early May. As soon as I get the date, I will make sure everybody can come and have a conversation. Because ultimately, what really makes me giggle is when people say, we don't understand the cost. Who is we? Because last I checked, I work for you. I work for the US taxpayer. Who here pays taxes? Raise your hands. Okay, you're kind of my boss, right? So ultimately, this is all of our costs. We're all a part of this, okay? This is not the Department of Defense in some dark hole, right? It's based on a budget that comes from you, the American taxpayer. And know that. It's all our money. I would just much rather invest $100 million into you guys than give $600 billion to our adversaries. And that's the way we need to look at it. I'd rather invest in you than them, period. What do they know? What do they have? Who here is from the Navy? Raise your hand. Who served in the Navy? Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. Navy people. What we learned in the Navy over the past 70 plus years is how you put the paint on the ship and the right paint at the right time to make sure that it's corrosion free, or you buy down corrosion, right? Do you know what China took? That theory. They took 70 years of our R&D and hard work, and they're applying it to what they're doing. I love this one, and I get crazy on this, right? Our adversaries, is there a long line of people waiting to go to other countries to learn and to work? No. They want to come here. Why? Because it's easier for them to take your company's IP, what you did, and build on top of it. That's what they're doing. We don't want that. You're too brilliant. We need to keep that for ourselves. Not to say we don't want to share innovation about really good things, right? Healthcare, we're going to share that. We're going to share how to build a house, right? What I really don't need them to know is how I build my weapon systems, how I protect you, how we protect each other. That's what this is about. They're taking the IP, they're taking the goodness, and they're building on top of it, and if we don't stop them now, they will outpace us. We own the competitive edge. Don't doubt for a minute, we do not own the competitive edge. We do. We are technically the best country in the world. We are defensively the best country in the world, and that's thanks to you. So don't lose that sight, but we got to get better to stay on top of the game. So RFIs in June. The rule change is going through. It'll be about October timeframe. The government, it stays pretty tight on those dates. And then I'm going to start putting it in RFPs in the fall of 2020. Yes, we're working on very specific contracting strategies. Who here holds a contract with the Department of Defense today? Raise your hand. None of you are going to have the CMMC because I can't insert it into a contract. Because what is it? If I did that, it's a cost mod, right? This is only going to apply to new acquisitions, new contracts. So if you're currently doing business today and you think to yourself, this contract is going to come up in a year, I'm going to go to rebid, pre-position yourself to know the CMMC will be there, right? Now, there are no companies accredited right now, but does that mean you shouldn't be getting ready? Absolutely not. Get ready. We put the model 1.0 out there for the public for you to, as a company, get prepared to look and do assessments. If you want to get with a company now that has been doing NIST compliance and all that, go for it, right? You should. But what you need to understand is you've got to get prepared for the audit, for that auditor. When the CMMC accreditation body has the first class of auditors go through it, and they come and you call to come get your company's audit, you should be ready for them. You should be ready to say, I think I've done my self-assessment, I think I'm at this CMMC level. You should be able to do that because it's good business sense. Waiting for the audit to come in and then decide to get good or to get on track is not the way I would position my business in this. For those people that are leading in, they sit on boards of companies or you own the company, if you're not where you think you need to be, how are you going to get there, right? You've got to plan for this. And we don't want you to get caught short-footed. So that's why I've been very vocal. That's why we're out. That's why we're ahead of the curve on this. But it is happening. And it will be, if the rule chain goes through the way it is, it'll be mandatory in all contracts by 2025, right? So, and why that date? Most acquisitions are based on 1 base year plus 4 option years. I'm living in the acquisition cycle. So if you're on a contract now, generally, it will go to full recompete in 5 years. That's why we have a 5-year turn. People think that we're doing it, it's not going to get there fast enough. Well, see, I think we'll all get certified, the bulk share of us, within 2.5 years. Why? Because the CMMC is good for all DoD contracts, right? So how many companies are only working with one branch of service? Generally, you're working with multiple. This, unlike the CMMI, so who did CMMI? I did. My company went through that. That was it was a lot of fun. But it was based on a program, right? And you could only apply that program. This is your company's posture about cybersecurity. So it's good for all your DoD contracts. So when I did the rollout, I said I'd have about 1,500 companies certified in 2020. Those are organic new companies, right? That same company, so if I'm katiearrington.com, whatever, my company, once I get certified, it's good for 3 years. So the 1,500 in year 1, the 7,500 in year 2 are brand new companies. I think that there will be more on this. I think that this is a cultural revolution we're going through as a nation because we're realizing the impact cyber has on our day-to-day lives. Do I think that other federal agencies are getting on board? Yes, they are. They're waiting for me to get through my Pathfinder to kick. Are there other countries? Yes. Ms. Lord made a statement this past week. I know I have been on the road. I have seen more places in the past year. Who follows my LinkedIn? I did a post the other day about my luggage. I have done 100 speaking events since March of last year. That is internationally, that is in the US. This is a global message. Why? Because our peers like the UK, Australia, Canada have their own cyber standards. We ingested them. And I'll go back to the one last thing, and I don't know, how much time do I have left? What time? Huh? So I can know where to go.
You have some more time.
Okay. How much time? Because I have to
take a
go.
10-minute break right before lunch.
Okay.
So
Okay. So who knows how ISO started? Who remembers how I've told people that? Oh, come on. All right. So we're going to do a little bit of fun history lesson here today. And I love this one. General Cardone, do you remember in what year we discovered the tank? After what war?
World War I.
Wait, say it.
World War I.
If you don't know who this is in the front row, this is General Cardone. He is a retired general, U.S. Army. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I love this dude. He's Army Cyber. He's what's started Cybercom. He's also he created the Army Futures Command. He set it up, and then he retired. And he's here with us today, and I just can't, a round of applause, sir, because you were a thought leader long before we had thought leaders. And as my boss, Mr. Kevin Fahey, says to me, the Honorable Kevin Fahey, he's just a really good tactical guy. He gets how to get things done. So I thank you, sir. Well, oh, God, please, Ed, I love you. I'll say it, I love it. World War I, there we are. We're fighting, we're in the trenches. Things are bad, very, very bad. Imagine being on the field then. So armies being what they are, right? So we all had the same kind of guns and the same kind of, cannons, and we all had the same kind of helmets, same kind of ammo. I mean, different, but like.
All in the trenches.
All in the dang trenches. I didn't swear there, everybody, just so you know. Dang, yay. Somebody say, yay, I didn't swear. You can't, so what did we do, right? The first thing that happened when our the people that do war thought, right? They created something called the belly flopper. Has anybody ever seen the belly flopper? Google it when you go home, okay? Google it now. How did we think we could get around the trench? We literally put a pallet on the ground with wheels, and they laid the soldier down with his weapon, because in the trench, the aim fire was lower. You were shooting people at their knees. You were taking them out at their knees. The belly flopper was a great thought, critical thinking. I've got to be able to get there, right? The problem is that it didn't have anything to protect it, so instead of getting shot in the knee, they were getting shot in the head. But it was the critical thinking. Oh, we need to change the way we fight this war. So what did we create? The tank. What was the tank? A means to get the like capability, the like technology, the like warfighter to the trench without getting killed.
Across the trench.
And across. But if we could get to it, we were a lot better off. CMMC. And Miss Lord, the quote that was on there earlier that said we are at, the like of a cyber war. CMMC is but part of the tank for cyber war. It's not everything, but it's like the tracks of the tank. The armor is encryption. Supply chain illumination is the turret, so you can see. It all works together. Every one of us has to realize that the CMMC will not solve the problems of the world. What it will do is promote our critical thinking. It'll get us more secure. We're willing to pay for it. Therefore, we should all be doing it, and we have metrics, audits to ensure that we're there to do it. The final thing, and I assume you guys want to ask some questions of me. Things to let you know generally. Yes, we in the department realize one size fits all does not, it's not security. It's not one size fits all, right? There are varying levels of security. We have rewritten, is there any way you can go to the website, the internet from here? Okay, so go to DAU, Defense Acquisition University. I'm going to do a free plug for Jim Woolsey today. Defense Acquisition University. DAU training. Yep, you had it. DAU training. Go to DAU home. DAU home. It's beautiful, isn't it? Can you scroll down a little bit? Whoever that picture is hi, how you doing? It's Terry Carpenter. How you doing, Terry? Scroll down. Stop. Y'all know how I've been talking about rewriting the 5000 series, how we in government tell our PMs how to set up acquisition. Can you click on that? That is the adaptive acquisition framework for your company. For you to understand where the DoD comes from and why we do acquisitions, you should probably understand why. So we created a new acquisition, adaptive acquisition framework. Because what? One size does not fit all with cybersecurity. Not every acquisition has the same rules and metrics as every other acquisition. So we created a whole new framework. But if you notice on this framework, that thing that runs through everything from urgent capability acquisition to middle tier of acquisition to software acquisition, defense business systems, acquisition of services, the thing that is constant through all of the different acquisition pathways we have in the department is cybersecurity. We changed. So if you can jump to the pathways, it also helps you pull out. So if you, keep scrolling down. Look at this, right? So it tells you the policies and framework of this. It tells the government how to look at a pathway. So a PM can go here and say, what do I need to look at? This is what I'm doing. My team wrote the cybersecurity enclosure, the instruction. to which that instruction says, first rules, the first line, which it's not up there yet because it's in coordination to go out, but the first rule, the first line in this instruction is, cybersecurity is foundational. It cannot be traded off for cost, schedule, or performance. That's an impactful statement. We said security is foundational. We told our PMs, we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for what we want. This framework is how we are changing culturally in the department. I suggest your companies go and look at how we are changing our culture so that you can ingest our culture. Security is foundational. This acquisition, adaptive acquisition framework, who's seen the new IP policy? We have one. You as a small business, you need to know about our new IP policy. As you go into bid on work with the government, you should understand what intellectual property means to you. It's part of the negotiation. We want you to get educated. We put it out there. We also understood that we had to retrain our workforce. You know, what Armando was talking about and Shannon was talking about was we needed our own people to get good about this. So we created at this website cyber credentialing courses that you can log into free of charge and take how to get smart about cyber. If you have somebody who works on acquisition in your company, they should go and ask to get into these programs. They're there for you because we want to get everyone good. That is huge. If you could actually click on, that policy. Oh, I'm sorry, help me decide which pathway to use. This is epic, right? Look at programs may tailor, combine, and transition between acquisition pathways to deliver capability. What they are not going to trade is that constant of cyber. They can change the way they're going to buy it, but they're not changing the foundational components of it. So when we say this is real, it's happening, it's real and it's happening. And this is why I know it is. Aside from the fact that Congress wrote it into law, did you know that? Did you know that they put it in the NDAA this year? That got signed into law? If you look at NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, for FY20, and you go to a section 1648, and you look at section 1648, you will see in that the section is called DIB Cybersecurity Framework. And they put in, I think it's subsection 3, part B, they wrote out, the government will import a cybersecurity maturity model certification on DoD contracts, that we will start Pathfinders in 2020. So this is real. So any company that's out there that's pushing back, don't get on board. Our international partners are getting on board because if you are in competition with a manufacturer overseas, they need to have the same requirements as you do. So any company that's doing anything outside of the United States that impacts the DoD contract, they too need to get CMMC certified. Because if we didn't do that, it wasn't going to be fair to US companies. It would put you at a disadvantage. The last few things I'll leave you with before lunch. How we started down this road. So I talk about the tank, right? And then we talk about how that tank, we started doing production of the tank. It became a global part of a NATO alliance, right? Why do we have NATO? Why do we have our allied partners using our like military equipment? Why is foreign military sales important? Because when we're fighting a war, we all need to have the same capability as we're fighting in a unified front. So after World War II, we had something called mil-spec. And mil-spec was the way we determined to our manufacturers what quality was, what quality manufacturing was, and how to be safe on the production lines. OSHA came along, got all that, but we had this designed. At the same time we did the mil-spec, because we started doing manufacturing in a global, our NATO partners came up the NATO spec, which said this is the level that we need to be doing this internationally. We were speaking like the Tower of Babel. We all were saying the same things in a different language. We came together and we created the International Standards Organization. ISO was created because why? The US Department of Defense said that they needed a standard and the globe adopted it. Does it ring a bell to anybody? What we're doing here? We are the largest buyer in the country. We influence the world. Heck yeah, we've got a leading edge in making this rock solid. So our international partners are saying this is a really good idea. We should have cybersecurity standards for everybody who's working because it only benefits all of us. So know that our international partners are looking, the accreditation body as it's coming into, will doing reciprocal agreements with countries when they have standards. When you know how I created the model, we took everything in the kitchen sink and put it into the model. Dawn's here, the team that actually did it, some of them are here today. We took the standards that are found in ISO 27001. We took the standards that are in CIS. We took the standards that are in NIST 53, NIST 171. We took what the AIA, the Aeronautics Industrial Association. We took what the UK did. We took what Australia did. We found everything. And you know what we found most common? Is they all had the same type requirement, right? They all had the same but their ask was different. But the output was the same. So we went, when we did the first iteration, Rev 4, it was like crazy huge because we had all these redundant controls in it. They were all speaking a different language. And through our partnership with academia and you, we have brought the standard down to where it is at Rev.1. And the first things first, no one size does not fit all in cyber. Most companies, so you figure out of the industrial base, about 300,000 companies today. And that's hard to get a quantifying on really how big it is. But think about this. Right now today, the cleared defense contractors are the ones who are approved to be touching CUI, right? The Controlled Unclassified Information. That's less than 15,000 companies out of the 300,000 in our supply chain. So most companies will need to get CMMC level 1. CMMC level 1 are 17 controls that are basic cyber hygiene and are at virtual no cost to implement. The only thing that's costing in the 17 controls is antivirus software. So if a company comes to me and says, CMMC is too hard, no, it's not. It's not. You're just not thinking, change your lens. It's not that hard. CMMC level 1 shouldn't take you but an hour to 2 hours at your company if you're a small business to be able to look at it. Tools that are here today, you will see. We are making it as easy as possible on small business. The accreditation body, companies out here that are in the audience today have created tools to help. They have created a DreamPort. MISI have created tools to help. We're going to buy down the risk, guys. We're going to do it together, though. We're not doing this alone. CMMC level 2. If I see that in any contract ever, I will be blown away. It shouldn't be in contracts. You should never see CMMC level 2. Level 2 was created for small businesses because to go to 17 controls to 130 controls in the level 3, that's a big jump, right? So we had to walk through how to get there, help companies plan for that level 3. So level 2 is to help you guide, to figure the financial impact. What do you need to do in resourcing to move forward? Do you need to hire people? Level 2 is to help. Level 3 is the instantiation of the current version of the NIST 171, that DFAR rule, plus what industry came out and said to us in academia. There were 20 additional controls added to to the NIST because we wanted the requirement was to get the security. So CMMC 3, right? If you're doing NIST today, you have that DFAR clause in your contract and you're self-attesting, you're doing 110 of those controls. I'm working on that cost of that 20 control delta. That's part of my work with OMB and OIRA. What does that 20 control cost? Because we have to pay for it. And then level 4 and 5 are deemed our most critical technologies, right? So if you're working on hypersonics, right, and you're actually doing that work, you're going to be at a level 4 or 5 because we have to work that. But let's say you're making bolts for a tank, right? You're a level 1. I don't want to burden you with the cost of having to get to level 5. You shouldn't be burdened with the cost of having to get to level 5. I just need you to have basic cyber hygiene in your business practice. That's what it's all about. So when a contract rolls, the RFP in the statement of work, because of that adaptive acquisition framework, right, how I've re-instructed my PMs how to look at the acquisition strategy, what you will see in Section C and Section L is the prime will need to have CMMC level blank. If you know where it says the contractor shall? Those requirements will actually call out what CMMC level they need to have. So we don't want everyone to be a level 5. We don't even want everyone to be a level 3. We love it, good for business, but it's costly. But we needed to ensure that A, we kept small businesses alive, we respected the cost of doing business and what the government was willing to pay for the product or service that we're getting, and making sure that the right security is around it. You have the right thinking around it. Last thing, because I know I'm between you and lunch, how much time do I have? Someone. Oh, okay, well, I'll get off the stage then. All right, last things. I hate when I talk because I go on and I wear a really nice watch, but it doesn't keep time. Just can't make my life up. I swear China's out to get me. Everything I have gets hit. The last thing that I'll say on this, we have tried to be as collaborative as possible on this whole endeavor. That's not stopping as we go through the pathfinders. Know that it isn't perfect. I would much rather move out, make a change, and adapt as we go than pontificate on how to solve the problem for 5 years and then have it exacerbated. So, yeah, it might be flawed. There are things I want to add to the model, you know, after the rule change goes through. But what we are right now is what is going to be in the rule change, and that Rev 1.0 is out there today. It has the user guides, it's had all the questions on it. It actually breaks it down from what the control says. It translates it into English. Then it gives examples for small businesses to understand. If the cost of the CMMC Level 1 accreditation is more than $3,000 or $4,000, I have missed the mark. We have missed the mark. So we're not talking about a massive amount of money here. Now 3 is a different discussion point, but 1, it shouldn't be that much. We're doing our analysis. Last thing I'll leave you guys with. You're never going to be 100% secure. There's nothing we can ever do to guarantee that. And I talk about this and I say it repeatedly, and because I want you to remember this and take this with you. Our country has flourished like no other country in the world because of 2 things. We buy down the risk and we buy up the uncertainty. And in the delta that we create by innovation, by communication, by technology, by our Constitution, by agreeing that we have the same laws with each other. Everything that we do separates that delta. It makes it bigger and bigger. And the reason why our country is the best country on the planet is because that delta is big. The CMMC is one thing that we're doing to keep that delta wide. And in that delta is where our democracy lies, our capital markets survive, our freedom exists. People don't say enough to you as industry as you sit here today, and you've given me your time this morning and your patience and your attention. Thank you for getting up every day and making sure that delta is big enough and wide enough that we will remain the competitive edge, that our children's children will have the same advantages that we did to pursue freedom. That's all it's about, guys. Giving them a shot. Thank you for giving us a shot. Thank you for doing the do every day. Thank you. Don't stop. Stay focused. And know that we in the Department of Defense, we know it's not perfect, but if we work together, as we have done every single time, when we need you, hey, come back on. When we need you, you've answered. The MRAP, people said it wasn't possible. Putting a man on the moon, they said it wasn't possible. You did it. Remember that. And with that, I will stop talking. You all have a wonderful day. I will stay around as long as I can today to answer questions, but thank you for your attention. Thank you for your dedication, and hope you get coffee and water soon.